Nisha, and I'm so excited to be here today. Look, I did not know what to talk about today, but PCOS kept ringing through my head. So hopefully somebody needed to hear a little bit about PCOS today. We're going to dive in because look, there's this notion that PCOS causes insulin resistance. What I want to invite you all to understand this morning as we talk is that it could be, and most likely is, the other way around. So let's dive in, talk about PCOS. If you don't know what PCOS is, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. A little bit of this talk is going to be about erectile dysfunction because all of it really is just metabolic infertility. Now, before we get in, welcome. I would love to know where you guys are from. If you type in the chat where you're from, US, UK, what state you're in if you're in the US, let me know. I love to see that from you guys. And you guys, I thrive on interaction. So this isn't just about me talking to you, it's about you getting questions answered. So let's dive in and see what's going on with all of this. I want to start with I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not really anybody special. I'm just like a number of you out there. I was suffering with health issues. And on my journey back to wellness, I started understanding that almost everything that we suffer from is linked to insulin resistance. And it doesn't take a pill, a medication to help it. Those pills and medications are just prolonging, but they're not fixing anything. So what we want to do is look at the root cause. Good morning, Kokomo. Let me know where you're from. Um, the root cause is really just insulin resistance, and that's born of this dietary environment that we're in that's so imperfect and causing us to have availability of food that's not what our body needs. And that's the truth I think we can all understand. Okay, so let's stop here. If you guys all are, how many of you? Because I think most of you understand that our food just is not what it's supposed to be. If you agree, put a 1 in the chat. From Pennsylvania, so you're super close to me. Actually, my daughter-in-law and my grandson are driving up to Pennsylvania this morning for a doctor's appointment for my son, my grandson. I call him son because he's like the other half of my soul. But yeah, it's beautiful out here. I'm from the West Coast and I recently landed in Maryland, Northern Maryland, about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, and I've loved it here. But we're moving on to Kentucky this fall. Another whole story. But look, so Purple Rain, I get it. The food that we have, look, it's packaged, it's processed. When we go out to eat, it's cooked in seed oils that are probably not changed and rancid, making you sick and causing inflammation. Our food, our crops are not rotated. And so they're not, science is showing, studies have shown that our foods are about 40% less dense in nutrients than they used to be. That's a problem. So we're eating food really is supposed to be giving us the building blocks and the energy and the nutrients that we need to thrive and survive, but we're just not getting that out of the food we have today. Even when you go to the raw organic aisle, most of those foods have been genetically modified as well, and organic only means a certain percentage that it's organic, and it can be labeled as that. It doesn't mean that it's ultra clean, although some of them can be. So let's talk about our food and insulin resistance, because this food is what's causing insulin resistance. Then I'm going to talk to you about PCOS. Or how about we talk about PCOS first? Let's talk about that. And then we'll go into insulin resistance. Because I just want you to understand this is not a pill problem. We're not deficient in pills. We're not deficient in any of those medications. We're not built for us to ingest those for our health. We're built to have nutrition from our food, but our food is completely jacked. It's our bodies don't even recognize it anymore. So polycystic ovarian syndrome. Why am I talking about insulin resistance and polycystic ovarian syndrome? So that's what PCOS is. So let's break that down a little bit. Poly meaning many, cystic, little pustules along the ovaries and anywhere, but ovarian. So there's many cysts in the ovaries. So it's a syndrome, right? What's causing it? How is this happening? Let's dive in. So ovulation for women is a pretty complex cycle. And I think we all know that and understand that. Most of us don't understand the cycle fully. So let's dive into what's happening that's giving women a cycle and why it's not happening that way with people with PCOS. So look, I had PCOS. I'm 60. You guys, everybody today is so lucky. They have all these diagnoses and doctors recognize what's going on, and we have solutions. But back in my day, they just knew that I was resistant to having kids, and they knew that there were cysts all over my ovaries, and they blamed the cysts on a number of other things, which was a lot of shaming and blaming, which none of it was true, but it sure made me feel bad. Now, in the ovaries, and polycystic ovarian syndrome means that it's really hard for these ladies to have a baby, to conceive even at all. I want to go over, before we get started, some of the symptoms and stuff of PCOS so you guys can understand what's happening. Um, PCOS is, I've got to get, I've got to get to the right page because I have so many things open. PCOS is very parallel to insulin resistance in most of the symptoms. The biggest symptoms that are different, but would still tell me that you're insulin resistant, are irregular periods. Okay, so periods just aren't happening on time. I remember I only had maybe one period a year that was within the normal timeline of other women. Most of mine were 6 weeks, 2 months apart, and they were painful. And the cycle was horrible to live through, but nobody back then talked about it. Nobody understood it. I just suffered and with no answer, except for lose weight and you might feel better. Well, I didn't start gaining weight till I started having symptoms of PCOS. Another symptom is that there's excess androgen levels. Androgens are things like testosterone. And this is going to become important if you just hang out for a second. I'm going to tell you why that excess testosterone is happening with women with PCOS, because it's not that you're broken, it's everything to do with the environment that we're in that's causing the problems. So the ovaries also get enlarged and painful as they get filled up with these cysts. Those are some very obvious symptoms, but other things are weight gain, particularly around the abdomen, visceral fat. Anybody recognize visceral fat from my talks about insulin resistance? Difficulty getting pregnant, oily skin or acne. Talked about skin a lot with insulin resistance and how that's causing these skin problems. Very bidirectional here and very linked. So dark patches of skin, acanthosis nigricans. So skin tags, severe acne, and acanthosis nigricans are all skin issues of insulin resistance. Yet here they are in PCOS. Why would there be so many things that are the same? So let's take a look. But there's also thinning hair or hair loss from the head. This happens a lot with women with high levels of insulin resistance, mood changes, depression, anxiety, and pelvic pain. So most of those symptoms are very parallel to the symptoms we see with insulin resistance. We want to understand that. What about overactive sweating? That can be a lot of things, and I'm not and that's not one I've looked into, Diane, but what I love to do is look at science and see if there's a link. So if you want, I can look up overactive sweating and see if there's links to insulin resistance and how insulin resistance is causing that. And that would be an amazing talk because I've never done that one before. So I'm going to write it down and we'll talk about that tomorrow. Okay. So sweating though with women, I'm gonna say this before I talk about that tomorrow. Sweating with women and hormonal imbalance is very, very prevalent. So if you're having hormonal imbalance, including PCOS, and you're having problems with being hot and then cold or sweating a lot, that's a hormone that can be a hormonal imbalance, but not always. So PCOS, with insulin resistance. This all started because maybe it was on my mind so much because people asked about it yesterday and I had conversations yesterday. So I was helping one of my clients and she was talking about all the things that she had been diagnosed with. And I'm not going to share her story in full. We'll talk about it on another talk, but she mentioned PCOS. She was like, this happened and this happened and this happened. And then all of a sudden they said I had PCOS. And I'm like, every symptom that you've said before that would indicate that you're insulin resistant. So why did your doctors never catch that you were insulin resistant? And can you see that this progression of symptoms before you were ever diagnosed with PCOS are that avalanche that's causing this hormonal dysregulation? So that's probably why I'm thinking about talking it today. So insulin resistance, it's highly prevalent in women with PCOS. Sorry, sometimes my brain is having a hard time getting all the words out at once. Um, Up to 70% of women with PCOS have some type of diabetes, prediabetes issue going on. That's a pretty heavy statistic of up to 70% of women with PCOS are basically insulin resistant. Now, I would be challenged to go in and say that the number is probably higher than that. Now, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, can be genetically linked, but there's always, if you're learning, there's always a switch that turns that genetic piece on, and that switch generally is insulin resistance. So this is what's happening in your body with PCOS. At the beginning of your cycle, your estrogen levels are low, and so the body, there's this center in the brain called the hypothalamus. Then and the body's communicating. You have this direct connection between the body and the brain, and it tells the hypothalamus that we need follicle stimulating hormone. I think I got that backwards. Hold on a second. Sometimes I do get it backwards, and normally I don't, but I need my tea this morning, is what it is. There we are. Yep. So, all right. I have it right. I don't know why I was questioning myself, but follicle stimulating hormone. So it's pretty self-explanatory. What that follicle stimulating hormone is doing is it's telling eggs to start maturing and being released so that one egg can be matured and become that viable candidate to create a baby. That's the whole process of our ovaries and testes is really about that, right? So the brain is producing this follicle stimulating hormone. Now we have these eggs starting to grow. At some point, one of the eggs becomes mature enough, becomes dominant enough that the body goes, oh, hey, we have a candidate. And so then it's cueing the body to produce more estrogen. And when the body's producing more estrogen in from the ovaries, then it's cueing the body to produce more luteinizing hormone. And the luteinizing hormone tells those follicles, eggs, to go away, except for the one that's ready. If we're not having a rise in estrogen, we never get the cue for the luteinizing hormone that's telling all the eggs to dissipate and go away, and the one egg to remain and be pushed out in from the ovaries, and that's called ovulation, right? So with PCOS, what's really happening is insulin is down regulating the production of another hormone called aromatase. And aromatase is this thing in your ovaries that tells those androgens to turn into estrogens. So we all start out with androgens. You guys, this is a little bit of maybe biology, but we all start out as males, right? We all start out as males. In our ovaries and our testes are very similar. In women, the ovaries are up inside, and the men, the testes drop and they're outside. Testes can produce some estrogen, but they are big carriers of testosterone. Ovaries are taking the testosterone and converting it into estrogen at the right point in time. So remember I said one of the issues with PCOS is high levels of androgens? Well, if the body's not putting out enough aromatase in the ovaries because insulin resistance has messed with the body's ability to produce the aromatase, then testosterone cannot be converted into estrogen. Now we start to have problems. This woman is low in estrogen, high in testosterone. Her ovaries are not being told to get rid of the eggs that are not viable, good morning row, and hold on to the one that is viable. So these eggs are all hanging out in the ovaries, kind of not knowing what to do with themselves. And at some point, they're like, hey, I am a little sick and tired. I'm tired of hanging out. And they fall into the linings of the ovaries, and it causes these little pustules or cysts. Now, in a normal woman, when luteinizing hormone, in a normally functioning ovary, the luteinizing hormone will dissipate those. Basically think of evaporate those cells so that they're not landing in the ovaries and causing the cysts. But without that cue, and it starts with converting testosterone into estrogen to rise in estrogen that cues the luteinizing hormone, they can't ovulate. And so periods are longer, and then they get filled with these cysts, and they start to become painful because those cysts are swollen and inflamed. And what do we know about inflammation? Inflammation causes insulin resistance through a number of factors. So, bidirectional, again, yeah, because the insulin resistance is messing with the aromatase. The aromatase, not being able to convert estrogen, is causing those eggs to hang out and become cysts. And that inflammation then increases the problem with insulin resistance. And so now we have this negative spiral of these two effects pushing each other out. So, what if it was as simple as getting the insulin resistance under control so that the body could respond to those hormonal cues properly? And why? Again, because now we're getting normal levels of aromatase in the ovaries that are allowing this whole cycle to happen. And it's so powerful that women who have been on the system that I do, I'm older, I no longer have periods and hadn't been having them since before I started the system. But the women who are still there have been reporting that, hey, for the first time in their lives, they're having periods that are that normal 28-day period. They're having this normalcy in their ovulation that they've never experienced before. The pain is going away. The amount of bleeding is going down. And some who were wanting to have children and basically told they might never have children because of this polycystic ovarian syndrome now have babies. And they were shocked that it was so easy as addressing insulin resistance. So why I link things to insulin resistance all the time is because doctors, scientists, metabolic scientists are saying now that 95% of our disorders today are linked to insulin resistance. What did they do? Can you have this after a hysterectomy? You can have insulin resistance after a hysterectomy, but if they left your ovaries, you could probably still experience some of the pain, but I would be doubtful that you would have PCOS after a hysterectomy. However, insulin resistance is possible at any time from a child up to an adult like me. So 90 years old, even to the end of life, we can have insulin resistance. And that insulin resistance, this is just yeah. So then the PCOS part would not be happening. But now let's think about that. So they took your ovaries away, and now you're having to supplement, right? Or you're supplementing with a bias like estrogen, progesterone type um, cream or pill or whatever they gave you because your ovaries are not there to do the job now, right? The insulin resistance is the same as diabetes. However, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the stair step or the ladder to get to diabetes. So it all starts with improper food. That's what we're being fed. It's the environment we're in. There's not a lot we can do about the food we have today, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But so it goes from that to having high levels of glucose in our bloodstream, and that high level of glucose is because we have carbohydrates and starches that are so concentrated now in the absence of fiber that it's creating these spikes in blood glucose. Those spikes in blood glucose cause a spike in insulin. The spike in glucose consistently by eating all day long, by eating every 2 hours, creates a constant need for high levels of insulin. That is hyperinsulinemia. Then that becomes insulin resistance if it's not treated in time or taken care of in time. Insulin resistance, and I'm going to explain how this becomes diabetes in a minute. Insulin resistance is next, and then it becomes prediabetes, and then diabetes, and then type 3 diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's, and even a shutdown of your pancreas where you can't produce insulin at all. Insulin is a hormone produced in the pancreas. So if the pancreas is breaking down from working too hard all the time, um, it's just not going to function. So, how does insulin resistance now become diabetes, and why are so many doctors missing insulin resistance? I think that is, do you want to hear that part? Because I think that's important. Um, let's make sure this is off over here. Okay. So, insulin resistance. Now, when we're eating this food and it becomes sugar in our system, our body can only deal with about 1 teaspoon of sugar in our bloodstream at a time. And then it starts to go into panic mode, basically saying, we got to get this out of the system. Well, what is sugar in the bloodstream? Well, if it stays in the bloodstream, it causes the blood to become thick and sticky, and now we have problems there. But that's why the system wants it out of there. But it's actually energy. So that glucose in your system really is just a big word for energy. So when we have this energy because we ate, the body cues the pancreas to produce insulin. Insulin is many things, but in this case, we're going to talk about it being a transport hormone. So it goes in and says, okay, I'm going to take these little packets of glucose and I'm going to deliver them to the cells of the body. Every single cell in the body that has been looked at has an insulin receptor on it, needs some kind of energy, right? This is not about necessarily what some people would term a sugar um, receptor, but basically it is. So there's these receptors on your cells, and you want to think of them kind of poking out like this. They're little things that take in hormones and nutrients and whatnot. But the cells start to shut down to the cues of insulin resistance or of insulin because they're inundated. There's just too much insulin hitting them all the time, and they're tired of insulin knocking on their door saying, "Let me in." So some cells just are not accepting it. And when that happens, now we have this excess glucose floating around in the bloodstream, and insulin's like, I got to deliver it. You're going to eat more, and there's more packages coming in. I got to do something with the packages you've already delivered. And so let's go to the storage unit. And the storage unit is your fat cells. So it starts pumping your fat cells full of this glucose that it can't get any other cell to take in. So now your fat cells are expanding, right? And you're getting heavier. Was the weight what caused the insulin resistance, or did the insulin resistance cause the fat cells to fill up? I think we're all smart enough to get that, right? So now these fat cells are self-preserving too. They don't want to die. They don't want to explode. But the truth is, they can only expand so much. And that's going to be different for different people. Some people's fat cells fill up pretty quick and they're like, oh, we're done. And so they can end up with insulin resistance and be very thin. Some people's fat cells are going to have more capacity and they're going to fill up over time and become bigger. And so that person is a little heavier. Now, here's an interesting thing. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. We're going to talk about fat cells again. But bottom line, when those fat cells get full, they want to preserve themselves. And if insulin insists on putting its energy in the fat cells say, okay, we're just going to become leaky. So you're forcing me to take on more than I want. So I'm going to leak this back out into the bloodstream because insulin, you're kind of being a bully right now. And so all of a sudden your blood sugars start to go up. But you could have been insulin resistant for 10, 20 years before those fat cells become full enough to say, I'm just going to leak this back out into the bloodstream. Now your blood sugars are going up. Now your A1C is going up. Now your lipid levels are changing. And you look at your blood panel and it goes pretty rapidly. Once you become pre-diabetic, if you're not addressing it, you start to become diabetic really quickly. And then we have lots of like downline problems, but they're all very linked. So that's the answer to that. How do you reverse it? So how we reverse it is simple. It's actually really simple. I don't want to overcomplicate it. I have 6 simple tips to helping reverse your insulin resistance. And then I'm going to show you what I did to reverse mine because I was full-blown diabetic and now I'm if I go into a new doctor's office today, have a blood panel run, and just let them do their thing, they're not ever going to know unless I open my mouth that I was ever diabetic because my numbers are all in normal range. And most doctors aren't understanding the other clues that would tell them that I ever was diabetic. Interesting, right? So 6 simple tips. You want to get fiber in first before you eat every time you eat. Fiber encapsulates the sugars, slows down the delivery of the sugars, and slows down how much sugar gets delivered into your bloodstream. It helps with nutrient absorption in a body that's deficient of fiber, and fiber is not holding on to some of this stuff. Our food passes way too quickly through the small intestine, and now we're becoming malnourished. So, fiber first before you eat every time you eat. Now, most of us are only getting in 10 to 16 grams of fiber. I'm getting there right now. So, how much fiber? Perfect question. Most of us only get in 10 to 16 grams. This is what scientific studies, they've done studies on average, 10 to 16 is what we get in. What we really want is somewhere in the range of 30 grams of fiber. The science was showing tests going from about 16 grams of fiber to 37 grams of fiber and the benefits there. So 37 seems to be the hallmark, but if you can get in at least 30, you're doing much better than most of the world. Now, that amount of fiber would be basically the same as eating an entire bushel of broccoli or maybe eating 8 heads of lettuce. Can you do that? Can any of you guys eat a bushel of broccoli every day? And I want you to also start calculating how much would that cost you to have 8 heads of lettuce every single day. And like, I don't know, but I don't want to go to the store every day to buy 8 heads of lettuce, nor do I have the room in my fridge to store, like even 4 days supply, 3 days supplies. That's 24 heads of lettuce to just make it through 3 days. I couldn't do it. So I chose to find supplementation. Now, um, doctors are saying, nutritionists, scientists are saying that fiber, it doesn't matter whether you get it from real food or whether you get it from a supplement made from real food, that this is one of the things that your body's going to treat it the same, whether it's from food or a supplement. Just make sure that you have a high quality supplement. We're going to talk about that. So fiber first. The next thing you want to do is prioritize protein. Let me do it this way. I'll go over all 6 recommendations, then I'll go back and explain them. Fiber first, prioritize protein, don't fear fats, limit your carbs, do some time-based eating, and of course, move your body. Okay, exercise is important. I will not ever sit on any talk and talk about health and say you don't have to exercise. I don't care if it's taking a walk. I don't care if it's doing air squats. By the way, somebody suggested Tabata squats, and until I injured my knee, I was doing them. Great workout, just simple off the edge of my couch for 4 minutes. That's all you got to do, you guys, but you got to get up and move because we don't move in today's society. Okay, so we talked about fiber. Prioritize protein because these are why we prioritize protein. It gives you building blocks. Now, sugar gives you energy, right? The stuff that makes all the cells start doing all their jobs. But what builds the structure that we're in is primarily protein. So now with protein, we want to get about 1 gram of protein per pound of body fat. Some people will tell me, I eat a lot of protein. Yeah, you're eating about 50 grams a day. That's not enough. If you're having hunger problems, if you're having weight problems, if you're having energy problems, you're probably not getting in enough protein, 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. My ideal body weight would be somewhere in 100, around probably 172 pounds. I'm very densely built. So I aim to get in 150 to 170 grams of protein a day, knowing that that's what's giving my heart strength and helping me rebuild my heart. It's giving my liver what it needs. It's giving my kidneys and my small intestines, because all of those tissues, you guys, are muscle. We always think about skeletal muscle, the things that move our joints around as muscle, but we forget that all of these other organs are muscle tissue. So protein is really important. Protein also is the most satiating out of all of the 3 macronutrients. The 3 macro or big nutrients in our system are carbohydrates, protein, and fats. So protein is the highest in satiety. Okay. So A good protein, I just eat animal proteins, Diane. I don't supplement with protein a lot. I do, though. I do supplement with protein, and the same company that I get my uh, protocol from is where I buy my protein because I trust them to make sure that it's clean and healthy and not full of fillers and stuff that's actually going to cause me problems. It's called Complete Protein, and if you are interested, message me. I'll get you a link to that. Um, I do use it though from time to time when I just don't have time to cook or I don't feel like it or I know that I just didn't get enough protein in the day. I will supplement with a protein shake at that point. Was it Ro yesterday that said she did the Unimate in her protein shake? Now I've done the lemon Unimate in my protein shake and it tastes a little like the frozen lemonade from Chick-fil-A. Amazing taste. So I'm going to try the apple spice in my protein today. Now, protein, back to protein. So we need that protein, right? Some of the protein breaks down and gives you those building blocks. Some of it breaks down and creates other things in your system like sugars. So protein actually does spike your insulin a little bit, but less than half, I was saying half and apple at the same time, Ro. So less than half the insulin spike from protein as it is from carbohydrates. Fats, kind of in the middle of this whole game, they don't spike your insulin. You can have fats during a fasting period if they're the right fats. And those are also very satiating, not quite as satiating as protein, but like coconut oil is even more satiating than protein. So, or coconut milk, any of those with good source of saturated fats. Proteins also need fats to be metabolized. So this whole low fat era we were in and a lot of problems we were seeing, like people with rhabdomyolysis, I'm thinking of CrossFitters. So they're doing these really intense workouts and they're filling their bodies full of creatine because they want those muscles to grow, but then they go low fat because they're trying to keep themselves lean. Let's talk about it. Fat is what encapsulates your protein. Okay. So muscle cells have a little layer around them, and that little layer that's holding the muscle cells together is built up of fat. When you go low fat, that layer that's holding it all together becomes thin and brittle, and under pressure can break open, and now your muscles just kind of oozing out everywhere. Rhabdomyolysis. So fat is really important, especially if you're an athlete and you're trying to do anything with your muscles. You have to get in good amounts of fat. So by calorie, you want to match calories of fat to calories of protein, about that. That's a lot of fat for some people and they're going to freak out, but actually it's been shown to help your metabolism. The cholesterol in your system is not built up from these healthy fats. It's built up from things like inflammation from trans fats and flats, and sugars. But these healthier fats I talk about, coconut oil, avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil. Now, olive oil is one that I love, but you guys have to be really careful. And I've had to become a big label reader with olive oil because olive oil that's sourced from multiple different places is not as healthy as something that's like sourced from Tuscany, whatever. But those multiple different places, now we're starting to lead into differences in the way the oil is. And I cannot remember the exact reason they were talking about, but we want to make sure it's from one source. The other thing with olive oil is that if it's in a light bottle, don't buy it because it's in a light bottle because it's not going to go rancid when it hits light. A good olive oil is going to go rancid when there's too much light. So you always want to keep your olive oil in a cool, dry, dark place. That oil is good for you. The other olive oil is likely seed oils that have enough olive oil in it for them to become, dark glass, no plastic. Exactly that. But then there's butter and ghee that we can use, and then the fats on your meats. So how many of you guys have suffered through eating steak that you were trying to be healthy, so you cut all the fat off of it, or you've given up steak because you were told that it's horrible for diabetes or it's horrible for your metabolism? How many of you guys type a 1 in if you've had to either like give up steak because you could no longer eat it because you had to cut all the fat off, or you were told not to eat it because it's going to be hard for your heart or your metabolism or whatnot. Has anybody ever done that? Has anybody, because I was doing that. Like, I was eating steaks that had no fat on them and they're dry and they're tough. The fat gives the steak flavor. The fat gives your chicken flavor. The fat gives just about everything flavor. And actually, when Ansel Keys started talking about how bad fat is, we shifted. But the food industry knew, like, hey, foods just don't taste that good if we don't have some kind of flavor enhancer in there. And so what are we going to do? Well, the next thing that enhances flavor really well is sugar. So they started pumping everything full of sugar and regulating down the fat that we eat. And that really began the majority of our problem. So fats are healthy for you as long as those fats. I've done talks on the seed oils and how bad they are for you. A couple of things, just really short right now. They're drenched in hexane to process them. Um, they're high in linoleic acids, which have been proven in high amounts to cause inflammation in the body. And they're so rancid and toxic that before they're packaged, they're treated with deodorants or perfumes, if you will, so that when you open that bottle, you're not grossed out and dump it out. They have to make it smell and seem good or good enough that you're not going to toss it out. That's how bad those seed oils actually can be. So stay away from those and focus on, and coconut oil is great. It's harder to cook with, right? Because it's going to scorch easier, but that's a good thing. We don't want to cook anything in super high heats. But it's also the most satiating of the fats. It has some medium chain triglycerides in it, and it's a really good fat. Then limit carbs. You guys, we all understand we got to get rid of the boxed, bagged foods, right? Or limit them, and then try to eat as much whole foods as possible. I think that's a concept we all grasp. But how do we do it when our lifestyle is so fast paced? Well, you're not, most of us are not going to get away from that altogether. So that's why I love this protocol we're about to talk about. But when you talk about carbohydrates, focus on things like dark green vegetables or vegetables that are like really highly colored, and that are grown above ground. Now, potatoes and starch, if there's some good and bad with that, what I want you to understand is those root vegetables, and they're more starchy than sugary. Starch still turns into glucose in your system, and it's converted really easily into glucose in your system, especially when we've stripped off the fibers and then drenched them in trans fats. So those are those now. Intermittent fasting and time-based eating, we want to give our body a rest. Remember, when you eat, you're spiking your blood glucose and you're spiking your insulin. Most of us have an insulin problem. 93% of us have an insulin problem, according to science. So what we want to do is start to regulate down how much insulin we need. Beans are good, but beans are a combination of carbohydrate and proteins, right? If you're a vegan, you're probably going to have to rely on beans for proteins. And I'm going to choke on this one. Not really. I don't enjoy making people upset, but the truth of the matter is we are not born to be vegetarians. Most of us are not. We look at our blood types, most of us are O positive. We are meat eaters, and that's where we should be getting our protein. And more science is coming out showing that red meats are actually helping diabetes and heart issues and all of that. They're not the problem. It's all the stuff that we do to it, all the sugars we add to it, all the other stuff that we're eating with it that's causing the problem. So beans, yes. Better yet, steak, red meat. And then would be chicken and fish. But yeah, you can do beans. So then we're going to do some intermittent fasting. Why? So that we can allow the body to rest from the insulin and start to normalize our metabolism. Let's talk about what all that means. And we'll talk about it in a timeline. When you eat a couple hours, it takes a couple hours for those blood sugars to really start to get through the stomach into the small intestine and get absorbed into the bloodstream. So 2 to 4 hours, you're going to start to see that blood sugar spike. Around 4 hours, if your foods haven't been highly sugarized, you'll start to see the drop in your blood sugars. Now, it takes a few hours after that blood sugar drops in an insulin resistant person for the insulin to come down. Because what we've been doing is eating all the time and eating foods that are constantly spiking the insulin. So the insulin says, I'm a protector. I'm taking care of this body. I'm making sure it can grow. I'm giving it energy. And this person has taught me that they need me all the time. So insulin levels remain high for a while until we train that hormone to come back down. So about 8 hours after we eat before insulin actually comes down. Now, nothing just happens like that in the body. So this opposite hormone from insulin, or the component hormone to insulin called glucagon, finally comes out at about hour 10. Now, stop, pause. I just had this whole soundtrack in my head. Insulin is anabolic. It wants things to grow. It's going to hold on to everything. It's not going to let you burn fat. It's not going to let you break down fat. It's going to try and store everything and deliver energy wherever it goes. And that's a good thing, or we would not survive. But as long as insulin's out, it takes precedence over almost every other hormone in the body. So testosterone, estrogen dysregulation, leptin, ghrelin dysregulation, cortisol, adrenal hormones, all of that starts to get dysregulated when insulin is out, because it's kind of a bully. Now, when insulin comes down and glucagon comes out, glucagon is catabolic. It wants to burn things up. Now, why? Glucagon is now saying, oh, we don't have insulin delivering energy. We haven't eaten for a while. We got to go scavenge and find energy for the system. So, a paradox some people will see with this is that when they're very highly insulin resistant, their glucagon is also very highly dysregulated. So now glucagon comes out and the person's blood sugar stays high because glucagon is pulling so much out of the fat cells, out of the liver, out of everything to deliver sugar back into the system. Fat cells are sugar storage. There's some inflammation in there. There's some broken down proteins in there. But glucagon is breaking all of that down and dumping it back into the bloodstream to give you energy. So some people, if you're extremely insulin resistant, it may take more than a month or 3 months for you to start normalizing your blood sugar levels, even in a fasted state. But you know what that tells me? That tells me if your blood sugars are high, even in a fasted state, that you need to address this now, because the downline effects are going to be pretty horrible. Okay, so glucagon comes out about an hour 10, right? At about hour 12 now, glucagon is out giving its message to the body. Now ketones are starting to go up. Human growth hormone is starting to go up. We're starting to utilize some of these stores. And by the way, glucagon is not going to go, hey, body, we want to eat up all your muscle because you need that. It's going to go to the sources that it knows we can get rid of. So dead and dying cells that could become cancer, in cells that are causing inflammation, the substances stored in the liver that's causing it to be fatty and not function properly and cause gallbladder problems. Fat out of your fat source. Glucagon is getting rid of all of that to create that sugar that your body is using for energy. Now, your body does, and that confused me at first because I just said insulin is what carries that sugar around, right? So in some people, when they're very dysregulated, their blood glucose can go up so much that it's spiking insulin again, because insulin's like, I got to do this. But we have other receptors, like GLUT4, that can get that energy into the cell without insulin. So if glucagon is doing its job and it's not so dysregulated that it's pumping your blood sugars up too high, then we start having fat breakdown and we're still getting energy into our cells through this kind of back door that doesn't involve insulin. That's hour 12. Hour 14, our gut starts to go, hey, let's join the party. We want to reset. And so the gut starts to clean out. So some of that negative gut bacteria, some of the inflammation, some of the stuff that's going on in the gut starts to clear out. So between hour 14 and hour 16, you're starting to realize this cellular turnover and this cleaning up of your system. By the way, this form of fasting is good for PCOS. It's good for Hashimoto's. It's good for your heart. It's good for your liver. It's good for your kidneys. It's not damaging and it's not depleting you. You would have to go without food for a very long time for you to start depleting your muscle. because if you're heavy like me, or if you have insulin resistance, you have a lot of stores that the body can use up. Okay. So it's like a house. I lived down in Afton, Wyoming for a while. Very, very much a Mormon community or Latter day Saints community. And every home had this huge uh, basement that had this big, like, pantry storage room in it. So even if that family had to go through a time where they weren't getting anything in, they still had enough to feed their family, right? So that's kind of what our fat cells are doing. There's this big storeroom where even if we don't have the money to bring in food, or some disaster happens and we can't go out and get food, now we still have access to it. That's our fat cells. How long to fast in a day? The average person can just do about 16 hours fast, right? 16 hours, because I just mentioned how you go from through all this process, and it's between hours 14 and 16 that you're really starting to get the best benefits from a fast. Now, some people are doing OMAD, and unless you're older, now the one time I agree with OMAD is in an older person who's more sedentary, just have less nutritional needs than someone who's younger and busy all the time. OMAD for a younger person who's up and moving around, I don't particularly agree with it. To do it once in a while, yes. But I think for me, why I don't agree with OMAD or eating once every 24 hours is because it's almost impossible to get that 150 grams of protein in and all the other nutrients you need in that one meal. So unless you're super vigilant about what you're putting in your mouth at that 24-hour period, it's really hard to thrive on that 24-hour fast. I fast every day, Diane. So the question was how long to fast in a day, and then how often do you fast? So every day I fast. Some days, admittedly, it's only about 12 hours. 'Cause sleeping counts as fasting. Yes, let's talk about that. Most days I'm a minimum of 16 hours of fasting. Some days it's like 18 or 20 hours of fasting, and then my meals are a little closer. And that's when I might throw in a protein shake just to like up my protein and my nutrients to make sure I'm getting what my body needs for the day. Sleeping counts. So this is how we like to think about it. If you have your dinner at 6 p.m., okay, remember, 2 hours, your blood sugars are going to start to spike. 4 hours, your blood sugars start to come down. That's 10 p.m. About another 4 hours but after that, before the insulin really starts to come down if you're insulin resistant. So that puts you at about 2 a.m. Okay. You're still in a fasted state because you're not putting food in your face. So fasting is not about whether you're up and active or whether you're asleep. It's about whether you're putting stuff in your face. So, sleeping absolutely counts as fasting, and that's the great thing with this. Like, it's 9:30 today. My dinner, I ended up having like a Parmesan crusted chicken breast last night, and that was at about 8 p.m., later than I normally eat. So I'm not quite 12 hours into a fast. I'm going to want to wait another 4 hours. So about 1 o'clock this today, I'll have my first meal. Now, how do I make it through that? You guys have been seeing me drink a tea. So we're going to talk about the system now. This tea that's in this little packet is all I have to do to keep me fasting and not starving. Um, Get me energy, get me antioxidants, anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory. I say it like it's blasé because I say it every day, but it's pretty freaking amazing. All of that antioxidant, anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory issues, properties come from this one tea. Plus, it's high in vitamins and minerals. I tore off the top. I'm going to dump it in this bottle. Okay. So now I don't have to steep the tea. I can have it in any temperature of water, hot or cold. Now, there it is. I'm just going to shake it up. This is lemon ginger. This I shake a little more because if you were close, you'd see some of the tea swirling around in there. I don't know. So I just want to make sure I shake all that up so that it's all dissolving in there, and then I'll drink that down. Does black coffee break a fast? It does not, as long as it's black. If you're adding sweeteners or too much cream to it, it's breaking a fast. You know, some people will do those little coffee creamers because they're fats and um, they're not full of carbohydrates. The carbohydrate count is low. You guys, labels are deceptive. Have you ever wondered why there's a bag of chips that you would eat in one sitting and yet they tell you it's 4 servings? That's so that when they do the label and they're talking about the carbs and all the damaging stuff that are in it, it looks like less to you. But you got to read the whole label. All right. So this tea, it helps keep me satiated. By the way, one of the things I love with the tea that it is actually helping my body produce glucagon-like peptide 1. It's peptide that helps us with satiety. It can help me with glucagon, with glucose control, a number of things with this tea. And so I just drink this every morning. This one's kind of lukewarm, and I still don't mind it. In the wintertime, I love this hot in the morning. This one is almost empty. This one was ice cold. Okay. So the cool thing is it's real food that's giving you health. Yesterday, I think I had 3 tea just because I'm a hydrator. I drink a lot of water. I have water jugs in my fridge and all the stuff. But the tea is giving me energy and clarity. Plus, it tastes great. Um, it's eliciting that glucagon-like peptide, which is what those drugs, Mounjaro, tirzepatide, all of those are giving you, um, force feeding your body. This is helping you increase your own natural levels of glucagon-like peptide by 70%. Crazy. Now, a normal yerba mate tea is going to elicit that a little bit, but not as much because this is highly concentrated, 375 times stronger than a normal yerba mate tea. That's how I get through my fast. It shuts down my hunger. Okay. The tea, it comes as a system. So I want to talk about that. There are some people who just want to do the tea, but we cannot skimp on the fiber. And so the fiber is the next piece. Now, we're going to show you this. You can get it by going to the link in my profile, and I'll show you that if you don't know how to get there, or if you don't know how to get there, ask and I can show. You're just going to tap on my picture at the top of this live. A white box is going to come up below, and then when you tap on that, you get to my profile. In my profile, right below my picture, you'll see 2 red light symbols. Right below that is the link, and then you can order the system there. So I'll type it in over here for you guys. It also gets you to all of my other social media. So if you want to watch lives that I've done about other conditions, go to YouTube, Facebook, and they're all stored there. Unfortunately, TikTok doesn't have that kind of platform where we can store those, right? Okay, so the fiber. Remember I was talking about fiber earlier? This is the same thing. Super easy. I tear off the top and then just pour it in here. And not drop the packet in, which is something I've randomly started doing lately. I don't know why. But it's the same principle. This you want in room temperature to cold water, not ice cold and not hot, because it's going to mess with how this gels up. So fiber in. I'm just going to go about that many shakes. It's mixed. It's going to start to thicken, so I'm going to drink this down. And that's the fiber. I always walk around with the fiber mustache. Okay, we're going to check this bottle in a little bit because that's going to thicken up really well. That's giving me 5 grams of fiber, but it's giving me a variety of fibers, soluble and insoluble. I'm working on a blog post and a post about the fiber as well. The fiber is helping reduce blood glucose spikes by 20% and an insulin spike by 13%. There's no other fiber on the market that can do that. Other fibers may reduce a blood glucose spike by about 10%, but this actually almost doubles that. And so recent science is showing that this fiber in general, will keep working in your system for 4 to 6 hours after you drink it. I believe in fiber so much that I still drink 2 packets to 3 packets of this a day, because that's giving me about 15 grams of fiber. And if you know me, I don't eat a whole lot of fruits, vegetables, any of that. I try to, but that's not my reality. Now, the 5 grams of fiber in this are doing so much more than just the random 10 to 15 grams that we talk about, because it's specifically designed with soluble and insoluble fibers. And here's what they are. Soluble fibers are gelatinous. They're what's thickening up in the bottle right now. They're what's making that thick mess in there. But they're also helping encapsulate sugars. and slow down how quickly they get absorbed in the small intestine, how quickly they get to the small intestine, and how much sugar is actually absorbed in the intestine. So, this before you eat, do I want to sit down? We talked about that earlier. Do I want to sit down at 2 points in the day and cumulatively eat 8 heads of lettuce? Okay. No. I wanna eat my broccoli, I wanna eat which I used to love, but I don't anymore. So I usually lean on asparagus and green beans now. That's primary or spinach, I love spinach. That's where I get most of my vegetables is from those. Do I eat tomatoes and peppers and onions? Yes, I do. But the bulk of my vegetables are either probably asparagus, broccoli, green beans, or, spinach. But I don't wanna have to eat 4 heads of broccoli before I have my steak, or before I have if I decide to have a baked potato with my steak, I don't wanna eat 8 heads of lettuce before that. It's giving you a lot of fiber, but it's not giving you a lot of nutrition, and I wanna make sure I'm getting the nutrition in with my meal, as well as getting the protection from the fiber. Why is it like that? Again, because our farming practices and genetic modification have changed our foods so much. We shouldn't have to eat 4 heads of lettuce 8 heads a day to get the amount of fiber we need. So yeah, Kelly says does 2 a day of the fiber and 3 to 4 teas. And that's pretty much what my day looks like. You guys, if you come through my house, there's little mugs sitting all over my house. There's one by my bed right now. There's there's tea mixed up and there's water in some, and then I always have my empty bottles around so that I can do this. When I go to Montana, I fly out to go to Montana from Maryland Sunday. I'm gonna go see my mama. We're gonna go help her wrap up some things. She's almost 90, had some falls. Really concerned about her. So I'm gonna go spend about 10 days with mom, my 3 grandkids out west, and my daughter. So how do I maintain this lifestyle? You guys, let's talk about this. I am not going to Vegas, Kelly. So I love the Vegas trips for the education. Let's talk about that a little bit for the people who are in the business. I believe in going to events. I do. I don't believe we have to go to an event every month, and Vegas is not my city. I have autism. So picture me in Vegas with all my sensory overload possibilities, and now I'm in an area where there's smoking and ring-a-ding-dinging all the time and people yelling and horns honking and lights blinking. It's total sensory overload for me. It's not a place I love to be. Give me a mountainside by a lake, the beach with water, I'm good. But Vegas is not my favorite place to be. So I'm not going because I also, before I learned about the Vegas trip, had already made plans to go help my mom. And here's the thing. I prioritize my family. That means I have to balance my business with my family, right? So it's not, oh, my family takes all my time. I don't have time to build my business. My business takes so much time that I don't have time for my family. This is an important part in my life. And so I'm going to encourage everybody to understand that. My mom and I have not always had the best relationship. We have repaired our relationship as I've matured, as she's gotten older. And it's really important to me to have time with her while I can. Now, I wouldn't say this to her face, and thank God she doesn't watch my lives, but at 90 years old, when a person falls, breaks their leg, breaks their ribs, breaks an arm, they're not likely to heal from that very easily, and their mortality outlook is not very good. Okay. So I want to be with my mom right now. I'm gonna cry. That's the most important thing to me. From having an abusive, destructive relationship to having a beautiful relationship now, I want to give her all the love and attention I can. So Vegas at this point is not my priority. We're moving this summer, so no, I'm not going to Glick either. I'm not going to go to Taiwan. I've been there, loved it, would love to go. I'll go next year. Right now, my family, I built this business because I wanted to be a positive impact on my family. If I'm always working and never there for my family, I'm not giving them a positive impact. So that's where we're at with that. Okay. And you're so welcome. One day I hope I get to meet you. And I do, Kelly, too. I usually get an Airbnb and stay within a few miles of the office because I don't even want to go downtown. Some of my partners want to go downtown and gamble and do all the lights. Nope, nope. You'll find me in a corner sucking my thumb if you do that. I'm not gonna do it. All right. So a tea in the morning, a tea in the afternoon before when my energy levels start to crash and when I start to have hunger, and a fiber. The way I do the fiber, you guys, now I'm still having 2 a day, but if you're just doing 1 a day, based on the science that says this fiber is going to stick around for a while, I would do my fiber before my first meal, which today is going to be around 1 o'clock. So I will have a fiber before 1 o'clock. Now, with what I understand about fiber now, based on actual scientific data, not one paper, but multiple papers, that fiber that I have before my lunch, and this is what I'm going to recommend for you that are just starting, is going to still stick around for my dinner unless I wait 8 hours for my dinner. So if I'm having my dinner within 5 to 6 hours of my first fiber, this is still actually going to be more effective at that 5 to 6 hour time than it is right when I take it. So I don't eat a lot of carbs in my lunch. Great. I'm getting a 20% reduction of blood glucose at that time. Now, on a regular fiber, on just a psyllium husk fiber, these studies were done on that, right? So at that first meal, they're reducing a blood glucose spike by 10 to 13%. At about 5 to 6 hours, and they have lunch, their blood glucose spike is reduced by 60%. No, no. So, right, yeah. And I didn't know that either, Kelly. So let me read this out. So she said, so how long is the fiber effective? And wow, I thought it was just an hour. That's what I used to think too. And that's why I thank God so much that I have this platform. It was actually one of my dreams before I learned about the method and whatnot was to speak and affect thousands of people. I do that daily now. I wanted to write a book. I've done that. I wanted to do a blog post. I'm doing that. Like all of my big goals in life are coming true. But this whole platform allows me to go do research. You guys, I might not have done as much research on this as I do because of the questions you have, and the questions are benefiting me too. But all the research, and then I'm finding it. I will try to link some of the papers that talk about this research in a post that I'll do this week. But yeah, so 10 to 13% reduction of glucose spike with a normal like psyllium husk fiber. At about 5 hours, it's about a 60% reduction. And then they were adding fiber in again before dinner. Now at dinner, 8 to 10 hours later, when they have that other fiber, instead of just a 10 to 13% reduction, they're seeing a 30% reduction at that point. So think about that. If you're doing this fiber, now it's giving us a 20% reduction. What will that reduction look like? I'm not going to say it's going to double and give you 100% reductions in spike in glucose, but it's going to be markedly higher than just a normal fiber because this already on one dose immediately reduces blood glucose by 20%. So then if you do choose to have a second one, which is really easy to get a second box of the balance with your dinner meal, now instead of just a 20% reduction of glucose, at minimum, you're getting a 30% reduction in glucose and probably even higher than that with this particular fiber. So yeah, that's crazy, right? Because we all thought it was just an hour. But that's not what science is saying. And so if you were as confused as I was when the company made the switch between two fiber and one T, this hasn't been talked about as much as the chlorogenic acids in this, but that's one of the components that I think that we're looking at. Like, I still believe in getting in high amounts of fiber. I still want to supplement 10 to 15 grams of fiber a day for my overall health. But as far as blood glucose reduction, yeah, one will actually do it if you're just looking for that blood glucose reduction. I want to feed the good probiotics in my gut. I want to clean up years of damage in my gut. So I'm still going to do 2 a day. I'm just a fiber nut. Really, I believe in fiber so much since I started this system that's what I do. Um, Now the chlorogenic acids in this, you guys, I talked about it on Friday, so please feel free to go back to the captured video of my live stream about the tea and the components in this tea that are doing so much good. The ones that I focused on are chlorogenic acids, theobromine, mate saponins, and triterpenoid saponins. And I broke down, and I also have a blog post. If you want the blog post, it should be linked to my website now. But all of those components are giving us that antioxidant, anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory properties. It also has shown to reduce blood glucose. Just the tea, not as much as the fiber, but just the tea will do that. It shuts down hunger. It gives us energy without crashes. It's not causing damage to your heart. It's actually helping your heart self-regulate to a normal level. And that's why my blood pressure went from 180 over 150 on dual therapy to 112 over 74 this morning, just by drinking the tea and the fiber. I'm off of 13 different medications. I talked a little bit about it in a short impromptu video I did last night, but the complications I talked about in that video are only some of what I was suffering with, because everything on this list was my reality. And it's just the combination of these two things. And what they're really doing is just putting back what we have been depleted from, not given in our food today. So are we deficient in medications? No. Is our food imperfect and it's almost impossible to get the right kind of nutrition out of the food we have today? In my opinion, yeah. And it's not just my opinion. Science is showing this. There have been multiple doctors who talk about the fact that our food is no longer recognized by our body in the way it should be, because things like fibers, enzymes, and nutrients have been stripped out. So we're getting the substance in, and our body's like, what's this? What am I supposed to do with it? And now we're having dysregulation throughout the body. It's because our foods have been packaged, stripped of things, and had things added back in that were never meant to be there, or modified so that they're bigger, plumper, juicier, but nutrients and fibers have been stripped out. So how are we going to do that? Like, how are we going to get in enough fiber and these nutrients without getting in excess toxins that are present in most of the foods? Well, we're going to have to supplement. In today's world, we have to supplement with some of these things. That's just the reality. Now, as far as vegans and carnivore, I've had vegans who are nutrient deficient as well, because of the same things that we're talking about. So the system is all I did, and that's what Kim is doing. Ro does it. Liddy Lou does it. I have a woman who's lost over 160 pounds. No medications, no surgeries, just this system and some patience. And she lost over 160 pounds and is in better shape than she has been in 20 years. I have a young man who has lost almost 200 pounds in 2 years doing this system and the 6 simple tips that I talk about. He was told he was going to have to go on major medications because his doctor was worried that he was going to die if he didn't get his weight and his health issues under control. Um, he had erectile dysfunction, he had diabetes, he was having a number of other problems, including memory and mood problems, and those have all resolved, and he's lost over 200 pounds, no medications, no surgeries, just a real system that gave him his health back. He's kind of in the same situation as I am now. We're cleaning up the insulin resistance for him, but the damage done to his body from years of uncontrolled insulin resistance, he was just in the hospital this week to deal with some things. You guys, insulin resistance does so much damage to your body. Don't sleep on it. Don't think I can wait 20 years. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to deal with it today. I just don't have the energy to do. No, you won't have the energy in 20 years. You won't have the lifestyle in 20 years. I've lost 3 joints. 3 joints. I have 1 knee that's replaced and 2 hips that are replaced. One of the hips went so badly that I died on the operating table. They had to rip me open, basically, slam me back together. They put my leg on crooked. They severed a bunch of the joints. I have a hard time lifting that leg. So core exercises are almost impossible because there's nothing there to lift the leg and it's very painful. All of those things happened because of insulin resistance. So if you think, oh, insulin resistance isn't important and I can just wait, don't. It's exactly the reason I'm here talking about it, because there are so many downline problems that can happen. You can lose your eyesight. You can lose your hair. My hair was falling out. You will end up with, I found some pictures of me with the dark ring around my neck. Ugh. Um, you guys, just so many things start to go wrong in your body with insulin resistance. It's why they're saying 95% of us are suffering from it, or that 95%, 93% of us are suffering from it. 95% of our diseases and disorders today, from the mouths of physicians, are linked to or caused by insulin resistance. It's huge, yet it's simple. I drink a tea in the morning, gives me vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer properties, shuts down my hunger, gives me energy, feeds my brain, feeds my gut, helps my blood sugar stay low from a drink. And then the fiber, which is giving me my gut health back. 70% of your immune cells are held in your gut. If your gut is inflamed and sick, you're inflamed and sick, because that's what's leaking out to the rest of your body. Keep your gut healthy, keep your body healthy. The fiber and the tea are helping me do that without any medications, not one. I haven't even been to a doctor. The only time I went to the doctor in the last 2.5 years was to have an annual blood work done, and everything was in normal range. My A1C was at 5.3, my fasting blood glucose was like 96, and my triglycerides were down close to 100 from 197. So I don't have all the issues and health problems that I used to have that would have me at a doctor's office twice a month. Don't sleep on insulin resistance. Take care of it. It's easy. And now, do I have to be some kind of crazy vigilant person with my food? I could be, but I'm not. Um, Yesterday, I had some leftover for my first meal. I had some leftover chicken enchiladas with mole. The mole didn't have a lot of sugar in it, more of the dark chocolate, so it's a little bit bitter mole, which is fine. Some cheese, rice, and beans, right? So yeah, there was some carbohydrates in there. The fibers got me. The rest of it was primarily protein. Fiber still got me. Dinner, I had a Parmesan crusted chicken breast. And no, I didn't have anything else. Fiber still got me. I didn't have to eat a head of lettuce. I had this. You have serious hair loss and some dark patches. Oh, yes, they are signs of insulin resistance. So, Ro, I drank a fiber this morning on live. I think I may incorporate it into your daily routine. Yeah, so, you guys, let's talk about why I drink this fiber in the morning when I'm not even eating, or like now I'm not going to plan to eat for at least 4 more hours because my fasting window is shortened because I ate late last night. So let's talk about it. I haven't talked about it till recently, but I am struggling with some heart issues. All the typical things of nausea, I get hot flashes, I have extreme fatigue, I get out of breath too easy, da 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 da. So I have to pay attention to those symptoms. The nausea is horrible. Yes, it's a heart symptom. The nausea makes me feel like this type of nausea makes my brain feel like I need to eat to get something in my gut to calm down the acids. Without doing Tums that are causing problems, without doing any of those other medications that have been shown, especially recently, to cause issues, I have fiber. It coats my stomach. It slows down that nausea. It's feeding the good gut microbiome in my gut. It does not break a fast. In fact, what I noticed when I was doing last year, I did some like 3, 5, and 10-day fasts just to see what happened in my body, where my glucose levels went, where my ketone levels went. My ketone levels went up during a fast when drinking the fiber. So here's why. And I talked to Dr. Bickman about this, the guy who wrote this book. I was able to talk to him and I asked him directly. I said, hey, look, I'm doing all this stuff and I really love the system and I love to be educated. But this is what I noticed when I did this fast. So I'm already in a fasted state, know where my ketone levels have been, had done a fast before, saw where my ketone levels were. I drank this just to see, and my ketone levels went up. So here's the thing: when your ketone levels are up, insulin is down. When insulin is up, your ketones go down. So, a very simplified way to tell if you're staying insulin sensitive is, do you still have ketones in your system? If your ketone levels are low, you're still having a blood glucose problem, and we need to work on that. If the ketone levels in a fasted state are allowed to go up, then insulin is staying down and you're becoming more sensitive. This is feeding the good gut bacteria. And when they eat this, it creates something called short chain fatty acids. Short chain fatty acids cue the body to produce ketones and burn fat for fuel. So, am I talking about an empty your gut fast? No, I'm talking about a get your insulin under control fast. This does not break that fast. This does not break that fast. So, there's that. Now, have serious hair loss and some dark patches around my neck. So yes, acanthosis nigricans, those dark patches around your neck, you may, if you check, see them like on your elbows. My elbows had dark patches, like this whole area all the way down to about here was dark and scaly, and like this satin shirt, I couldn't wear it because this would catch on it. I was scrubbing it. I was using all kinds of cleaners on this and putting shea butter and coconut oil and just feeling like, oh my God, I have a problem. I just don't stay clean enough. It had nothing to do with that. When I got my insulin resistance under control, all that discoloration gone. No scaliness, no roughness, softest skin on my elbows I've ever felt. Insulin resistance, and here's what's happening. With the acanthosis nigricans, you have some that's not acanthosis, but the darkened skin patches, you're producing more melanocytes. So with insulin resistance, it's not always a reduction of sensitivity. Some cells are becoming overly used to the insulin party, so they're taking in too much. In skin tags, that means keratinocytes are being overproduced and they're popping out because they've got nowhere else to go in these little finger-like projections of skin around the body. Skin tags, overproduction of keratinocytes, keratin in the skin causing those. They will go away once you get the insulin under control. Dark skin patches, there's a combination of things with the acanthosis nigricans, but it's similar. You're having an overproduction of melanin in areas. So like I had melasma on the side of my face. I had the dark skin patches around my neck. I had them on my elbows and on my knees. My knees would have these like little black things on the front. If you see all of that, you're insulin resistant. If you get the insulin under control, those patches all start to go away as your body normalizes with what it's supposed to do. So, yeah, to me, it sounds like you definitely have an insulin resistance problem. I'm not a doctor, can't diagnose, can't prescribe. But what I can tell you is the good news is insulin resistance is dietarily derived, meaning the food we eat causes the problem. So if we change the nutrition and the food that we're getting into our system, we can change the problem. And that's all the system is doing, is allowing us to have a real life and still maintain our health by putting back what's been stripped out so our bodies can recognize the food again and not have all the blood glucose spikes. Um, there was something in there I wanted to say. Oh yeah, the food. So typically I eat fairly clean, but like my grandson's coming over. I'm leaving for 10 days. Anybody who knows me knows he and I are tied at the hip. He will probably cry when I'm gone. I will probably have some really sad moments. I miss him so much every moment he's not in this house. Um, I'm thankful my kids allow me time with him. But we're probably going to have some pancakes in the morning. And he requested chocolate chips. So, yeah, in the morning, we're probably going to have some chocolate chip pancakes. Thank God for my fiber because that's going to reduce that blood glucose spike. With that meal, I may have a fiber when I wake up and do my live. And then when he's ready for breakfast after my live, I'll have another one to double down on that blood glucose spike with those pancakes. Now, along with that, I'm going to make sure that I get in a good amount of protein. It may look like a protein shake. I may put a little protein in the pancakes. But it may be as simple as some no nitrate sausages and eggs along with the pancake to make sure I'm getting my protein in. Do I have the bottom line is, do I have real food? Yes, I do. Do I have a Red Robin hamburger every once in a while? Oh my gosh, yes, I do. Do I go out to the Indian place and have tikka masala and this fried spinach dish, palak chaat, and all the other stuff, chickpea dishes and all that? Yes, I do. I get to enjoy my life. I just don't indulge in that stuff all the time. This is not this is not about you having to give up everything and live a life that's not sustainable or unrealistic. So that's the second part of this. Not only is it creating real impact, and by the way, there's studies on both of these scientific studies. This is a science based company, not a marketing company. They really care about the products we're giving you and not just making claims. So there's science on both of these. But this gave me my health back and allows me to live a real life while trying to do better in my life. Because it's sustainable, because I can have pancakes with my grandson once in a while. I never have to feel like I fell off or broke things or I'm just not doing well. And when we start having those feelings, we start doing worse and we're like, what the heck? It's not worth the effort. I just can't do this. So I want sustainable solutions for people. Something that they can do that gives them the ability to have a real life, travel, and still maintain this healthy lifestyle. It drives me nuts, you guys. I'm going to be honest. I'm always very honest. It drives me nuts when I hear people say, I was traveling and I fell off. Why? So easy. You know what? When I go to a restaurant, if I don't have my bottle, I usually carry a small purse. When I know I'm going out, I carry a larger purse. Put a little bit of water in this, close it, though it's watertight. Take this to the restaurant with me, have my fiber before I eat. But if I don't have the bottle, you still get a glass of water at a restaurant. I just ask for a glass of water, half full, no ice, and then I mix my balance up before I eat. Now, is there any reason to fall off or not do it? It's portable, it's sustainable, it's easy. If you have time for many of the other things we do before we eat, you can do this for your health. And it's not like a big um, issue to have to drink. So I don't know if Ro, you're still in here. Anybody who's doing the system, is it hard for you to have to do these before you drink? And actually, it's like this now. It's 2T. But it's so easy and portable. And so when I'm in Montana, I'm just going to have a full system with me. My granddaughter will drink up my tea. If I'm not watching, she'll drink up my tea. And I don't care because it's giving her health. It's not hurting her. If there's one thing I want her to drink, it's this tea over fruit juice, over soda pops, over all the other crap she could drink. That little 6-year-old, drink up all Nana's tea. I don't care. Yeah, so Ro went to Cancun for her birthday, took the system, enjoyed your vacation. So it's really great when you go to some of these all-inclusive resorts and they have all this food and it's easy to fall into I'm just going to try it because it's a time in life. But the thing is, the system is your prophylactic, it's your protection, and it's easy to pack and take with you. In fact, these will fit in your pocket if you're not carrying a purse when you're on vacation. They fit in my purse easily, even when I'm carrying the over the shoulder purse, and it makes it all sustainable. That's the key. I don't care how well something works. If it's not sustainable, people won't stick with it. This is sustainable. And as long as you're committed to your health and just stay consistent with 2 teas a day and one fiber before your biggest meal, you will see results. And we have a 90-day guarantee on that. Okay, kiddo had his last day of school yesterday. So he's at a doctor's appointment. By the way, I'm going to say this. I love that kid, but he is such a champ. At 7 years old, he has scars from biopsies that were taken. He has to have his blood drawn. He has to have random tests done. They have done so many tests on this little boy because his disorder is so rare. I think at the time he was diagnosed, there were only 500 people in the world diagnosed with his issue. So after this somewhat traumatizing day today of drawing blood and all these tests, he's coming to Nana's house. Nana has to go get ready for this little boy to come terrorize my house because 7-year-olds are so full of energy and life that it's crazy. Hopefully, he'll want some hugs, but I got to go because I love him. And we'll see you guys in the morning. If there's something, I'm going to look at overactive sweating. But if there's anything else that you want to talk about, please let me know. And I'm sorry, Julie, there's the link for the system. You guys, please use the link. I say this every day and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I want you, I want to benefit you. So Ro does the system. You order from me, you order from who you resonate with, but please do not go to Amazon, eBay, Walmart. And why? There are no authorized distributors on there. You don't get the 90-day money back guarantee. You don't get the quality guarantee. You don't get the low price guarantee when you go to Amazon, eBay, Walmart to buy it. When you click on my link to buy, it's going to take you directly to the company website. They will drop ship it. I never handle it. I'm just a representative. That's how you want to buy it. I had a person who thought they were going to save themselves some money by, I think it was eBay Marketplace. Was it eBay? And what they got was one box of the fiber for the cost that they could have bought the entire system. So don't cost yourself money. And then you're not getting coaching. So I've had people reach out to me and be like, hey, I bought the system and I never heard from you. And so then when I started doing some research to find out where they bought it, yeah, they bought it on Amazon. Well, I don't know. It didn't buy from the company. There's no like, buy from me. I'm here to help you and save you money. Also, if you put it on subscription, I haven't talked about this for a while. I want you to not be afraid of subscription with the system. There's benefits to it. They will send you out an email 5 days before your next subscription goes out. So you need to change the date. You need to change the product. Maybe you want to try the lemon ginger tea over the lemon. You can do all of that. They give you fair warning. So it's not just like you're going to wake up one day and this charge has come out of your system or you're out of your bank and you didn't know about it. But when you initially buy, it's going to save you the shipping, which is $10 to $15 in today's world. So that's $10 to $15 a month savings. And they give you a discount of $10 on the system for rewarding you for being on subscription. Now you can cancel it at any time. There's not a time limit that you're on subscription for. So just do the subscription. And I used to say it saves you about $15. It's now saving you $20 to $25 a month on the system. So do yourself the favor and put it on subscription. One of the ladies I talked with last night wrote me and said, hey, I need to delay my next shipment. Can you help me out? So I hopped on the phone and we talked about it. And what we found out is that she had way more balance and was running out of the tea. So she was able to just buy the tea and change her regular subscription out for about a month because she has enough balance to last her. You get all that help from me and you will save a lot of money. So just leave it on subscription and that's that. Then if you have questions, you guys, in my link tree, there's a way to get a hold of me. If you need more information before you decide that this is what you want to invest in for your health, let me know. I'm here to answer questions. I'll be back in the morning and we'll talk some more. You guys have a beautiful day. Thanks for spending your time with me and we'll talk to you tomorrow.